So welcome to another episode of The Property Show. I'm Matt Turner, and the show today essentially is about Dubai, the UAE, the property market out there, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But obviously last week in the UK we got some news from the Chancellor who runs the finances of the country, some news that will affect the property market here in the UK. Now, if you are a first-time buyer, someone who's not bought property before, you're actually going to benefit from saving some money on stamp duty. Now, if you bought a property last week, you would have paid £5,000 of stamp duty if you bought a property at £300,000. So there's actually an amnesty now. If you buy a property up to that level, or above, if you like, you're at £300,000, you will save £5,000 in stamp duty tax. Stamp duty is obviously a tax that is associated with the purchase of a property, and it's tiered like income tax now. So each section, so above 250,000, essentially you pay 5% of the purchase price above that level, and then it's tiered as you go up. So it's great news for first-time buyers. Actually, this last week since that news, I've had more inquiries from first-time buyers than any other week this year. So I would suggest that if you are thinking of buying, get out there and do it quite quickly, because probably what will happen, especially as we're coming up to the new year now, more people will come out and start to buy, and that might fuel the market a little bit. So it is a tax, or an amnesty if you like, that might well be a little bit inflationary. Owners might be thinking, well, I've got a first time buyer purchasing my house, I'm going to hold out because they've got an extra £5,000. So that could be the case. It's obviously a good incentive. If you are a first time buyer, you can put that money towards your legal fees, or moving costs, or if you want to think a little bit left field and progressive, maybe hire a property finder. If you don't know one, there is one chap called Matt Turner who talks on this show called The Property Show. Sorry, I'm being a bit cheeky. Anyway, so that was some great news if you're a first-time buyer. So anyway, back to Dubai. So the show today, I'm as I said, I'm interviewing three different people. My personal view of Dubai, it does get a lot of bad press. Good and bad reasons, if you like. I've been out there since 2005 on a regular basis, and it's definitely a progressive city. I get a very positive, energetic vibe every time I'm there. It's maybe it's another city that doesn't sleep. Just from going to business meetings, I said progressive. I mean, if you get in a taxi, they're all hybrid taxis now. I mean, if you look in London, so some taxis are chugging out a lot of fumes. The monorail, the public transport over there, I took that to business meetings. It's driverless. It's fantastic. Each station is very accommodating. It's got lifts for disabled access. And if you look at London, a lot of stations do not have that. Just be careful what carriage you get on out there in Dubai, though, because I'll tell you a quick funny story. I was coming back from a meeting. It was rush hour. I got on the tram and squeezed myself on, standing up, and I looked down, and all the people that were sitting were women and children. And I thought, well, that's great. If only in London people gave their seats up to women and children, so readily as well. I mean, it's quite often you'll see in London that a pregnant lady will get on the train and everyone's just staring at her, not giving her a seat, and it really does annoy me. I'll quite often just shout out loud and say, who's going to give this lovely lady a seat? So there I am on the tram, and I look down. So it's just me there, and standing up, and there's all women and children sitting down. A few stops later, the carriage is empty. So I take a seat, if you like. One stop later, this lady taps me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, sir, do you realise you're sitting in the female carriage?" So I was like, that's the reason. So just be careful what carriage you get on. Obviously when I got on, it was very busy, and I didn't see there's a pink line on the bottom of the carriage that designates that this part of it is for women and children. So enough from me for now. I really hope you enjoy this episode of The Property Show, which is out in Dubai. So I'm with Angela Skidder of House Hunters, a real estate agent in Dubai. How are you, Angela, today?
I'm really good, thank you.
Fantastic. So we're going to have a little chat about who can buy in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and Dubai. Obviously, the market's been open now for
Around 15 years.
15 years, yeah. So, I mean, just tell us a little bit about it. So it's been over 15 years. There wasn't a property market before?
There was a property market before, but it was only open to GCC residents. So non-residents could not purchase property and own property in Dubai. Okay. They can only rent. So 15 years ago, they decided to open it up to non-residents who could purchase property in cash, or they had the ability to take out mortgages and could actually own freehold property and leasehold as well.
Wow, that's unlike the European markets that have been going for hundreds of years, it's a new thing then, essentially.
Yeah, it is very new, but it has drastically changed over the past 15 years. So there's been lots of rules and regulations that have come into place. Yeah. So they really have learned along the way to protect everybody's interests.
Okay, so I think when the market opened here, I was back in London at the time, and everyone's talking about the Palm and people buying places on there. I think David Beckham and other celebrities supposedly were buying on there. Were you here at that time?
I was. I actually started working in real estate 15 years ago.
Right, okay, so
and the reason I started working in real estate was because I bought property myself.
Oh, right. You jumped in sort of on the unknown as well, yeah?
I did. Well,
okay.
I basically thought the allowance that we were going to get, we might as well use it to own a property rather than be in rented accommodation or company accommodation and move all the time. So we didn't really buy then as an investment. We bought because we wanted to have a family home. And the lady I bought the villa from owned up a real estate company. Okay. And I started working for her. So
the story starts there.
Exactly,
yeah?
exactly.
Okay, and you're working for House Hunters.
Exactly, exactly.
It's in the name, I suppose, there, isn't it?
Exactly. So in House Hunters we deal in predominantly villas. We also deal in a lot of other properties, but we're the number one agent in Arabian Ranches. And we also cover Victory Heights and the villa and the properties around there. So a lot of our clients would be end users or clients who are upsizing, downsizing, and we have clients going back 15 years who bought 15 years ago from us and are now either selling to buy something else or landlords who are maybe wanting to rent out.
And these are mainly sort of Europeans, expats, or
it's a real mixture. The actual, I believe, the main buyer in Dubai is actually the Indian nationals.
Okay.
But we have a real mixture, so we deal with, you name it, yeah, we have a real mixture. I wouldn't say it was predominantly one nationality.
No, okay. And when you say villas, I mean, how big are these villas? I mean, if you think about London, a one-bedroom flat is kind of 40 square meters. That's about 400 square feet. You have apartments over here of that size, or is that?
Yeah, of course. In Dubai, they like to be the biggest is the best. So when our clients come here, they do love the size of the properties. We have like the high ceilings and the big floor spaces. So you're typically talking a 3-bedroom townhouse would be around 2,000 square foot.
Oh, wow.
And a 3-bedroom detached would be around 3,000 square foot. But our villas go up to 8,000 square foot. If you go to a complex called The Villa, one of their largest properties there is around 8,000 square foot. So you really have a broad choice, depending obviously on your budget.
Wow. Okay. So the 40 square meter one bed that I'm talking about. I mean, how big is a garage here? Is that bigger than my one bed back in London?
Probably. maybe even the maid's room here might actually be a little bit bigger.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Yeah. Very good. So when people are buying these, are they buying these off plan? Are these built and then people purchase them once they're up and running?
Yeah. Again, legislation has changed a lot over the past 15 years. Years ago, a lot of people were just looking at a map and picking something off a map and paying then stage payments until completion. Things have changed now, so you have a lot more choice. There's a lot more areas to choose from. You have ready properties and you have off plan. So it really depends on your circumstances. It could be that someone's in a rented accommodation and they don't need something for another year, so they'll choose to buy off plan. Or it could be someone needs something, they've moved to the country now and they want to instantly move in which case then obviously they'll buy ready properties. But they have a little bit more choice than what they had 15 years ago. They had Dubai Marina, the Meadows and Arabian Ranches, and that was really it. There wasn't an awful lot more to choose from, whereas now there are a lot more areas and also a lot more smaller properties, because I think the government realised that there was a lot of luxury developments, so there's a lot more affordable housing now for people to choose from for young families with young children.
Okay, so let's just jump back to the 15 years then. So, I mean, it really was the brave investor, because I suppose back then, I mean, there weren't any buildings built, and it was literally you're buying off a nice brochure on a promise, essentially, that this was going to be built.
Exactly, and then a lot of investors did actually buy a lot of property, and they bought it with primarily the intention to flip that property.
Okay.
So
to sell on to someone else.
To sell on to someone else and make as much money as they could in the shortest period of time. So they might have bought 6 villas or 6 apartments or 10 or 20 or an entire floor, and the minute they'd made maybe 10% on that property, they would sell it. But legislation again has changed, that the government didn't want that, because it created a very artificial market. So they put procedures in place to stop people flipping time and time again those type of properties. So now you've got a much more established market, and things have settled down. So people feel a lot more secure in buying here, that they're buying something that really has value in it.
Yeah, so essentially it's matured, isn't it? I suppose the market, and it's evolved into. I mean, the system here then. So I mean, let's say I'm here and I want to go and buy a villa from you.
Yes.
How do we go about that? What's the process?
So the first thing we do is we want to establish which area obviously you want to buy in and what your budget is, because the budget obviously is going to be the main criteria. So since we've established your budget, then we'll show you around the different areas and the different selections of properties. You need to make sure you've got your finances in place. So obviously if you're getting a mortgage or whether you're a cash buyer, we'll go through the buying process.
I wish I was a cash buyer, so I'm going to be a mortgage buyer.
Yes, I wish you were too. I wish you were a cash buyer. It'd make my life a lot easier as well.
You'd be show me properties rather than talking to me.
Absolutely, let's go. But yeah, so we will go through the entire procedure with you, and we'll hold your hand from start to finish. We also now, again, as things have changed, we have a conveyancer in the office who will do all the legal paperwork for us before the agents did the viewings and dealt with the buyer and the seller and all the paperwork, which is very doable for us to do it, but it is quite a complex procedure. So now we have a conveyancer who can do all the paperwork for you.
Okay, and just touching on the mortgage element then, I mean, what kind of rates are available for, I mean, how much have I got to put down generally? Sort of like 30%, 40%?
Yes, you have to.
Obviously it will change per person's situation, but...
Exactly. The mortgages are obviously based on the valuation of the property. So like the UK, the property will be valued, and then the mortgage company, if it's under 5 million, will lend. You have to put down 25%.
25, okay.
So 25% plus the fees that are due, you will have to put down. So you really need to make sure you have that in place before you go and look around, because you have to sign a memorandum of understanding. So you have to sign an agreement to say you're going to buy the property, and you have to put down a deposit so that we can take the property off the market, and so the deal is binding at that point.
Okay, so that actually secures. So if I find a property, put my 10% down, that secures that for me for a time. I mean, will you set a date then for the closing, the completion?
Exactly. Okay. It's actually quite a really straightforward process, probably more simple than what the UK is, because we don't have a lot of big chains. We do have some chains, but not massive. So once you put down the deposit, then the property is taken off the market, and then once the seller's mortgage is cleared off and the property is blocked, again, something new that was created to give people more protection. So once you get to that stage along the transaction, then everybody feels very secure it's going to go through. So it takes around 45 days to 2 months to complete a transaction. It's reasonably quick.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's quite good that you've got a date that you're actually heading towards.
Exactly.
Obviously, like you said, in the UK, there's a little bit of the unknown there, and it might not actually happen. It might fall out of bed.
Exactly.
So you said about the protection now, and so there's a land department, yeah. So if I own that property, I register it at the land department? How does that?
Exactly. We have the Dubai Land Department, which is actually where we used to go and complete all the transactions. We don't complete them there anymore. Again, things have moved on and matured, and the land department closes at around 2:00 in the afternoon. Oh, wow. So they've now outsourced all the transactions, so you can go elsewhere, because we find a lot of people obviously working late, couldn't make it at that time. So we go to another office just to do all of the transactions, but everything is registered at the Dubai Land Department. So if you buy in certain areas, it's leasehold, but the majority of areas are freehold. So you own the building and the land on it, and that is registered at the Dubai Land Department. You will get a title deed, which will say that you own the property. If you have a mortgage on it, then the mortgage company will hold the title deed.
Okay. Oh, so it's probably a relatively similar situation, that part then, as opposed to the UK.
Exactly.
Okay. And you mentioned leasehold. I mean, what is that? All apartments, or how does that?
No, it's not necessarily apartments. We also have the green community, which is leasehold, so it's 99-year lease.
Right.
Obviously, if you take over the lease like the UK further down the line, then it's not 99-year lease. Okay. But that is leasehold. It doesn't seem to put some people off. They specifically want to live in that area. They like those type of villas, and they think they're only maybe going to be in it for 10 years because they might be leaving the country. So it doesn't put everyone off. Some clients it does, but predominantly it doesn't.
Okay. And you mentioned fees. What kind of fees? Let's say I'm buying a million dirham property, if that's possible. What kind of fees are involved with that?
So you will have a 4% transfer fee, which goes to the Dubai Land Department. If you have a mortgage, you will have 0.25% mortgage registration fee of the loan amount, not of the value of the property.
Okay, yeah.
And you will have around 2% agent's commission.
Okay. So the buyer pays the commission?
The buyer pays the commission. So the buyer pays all fees.
Okay. All right. So if you're selling, you're scot-free, are you? It's no problem.
Absolutely, but of course you were a buyer to then become a seller. Okay. So you did actually have all those fees beforehand. So it's just swapping around.
Swings and roundabouts. So, I mean, obviously being here now, and drive from the airport, and there's all these new. I was here 6 months ago. It always just seems like there's new buildings popping up the whole time. Are they still releasing a lot of units?
Yes, there are a lot of units being released, but we're finding our clients still would like to stick to the large developers, the one that have been around for a long time. And those larger developers are offering more choice, like I said earlier. We're not having all villas on a golf course, etc., etc. We've still got the luxury side, but they're definitely offering more choice, building more townhouses, so that younger families can also get on the ladder, just like the UK.
Yeah, no, okay. I mean, and so you've been in Dubai for many years. What is it like living out here?
It's fabulous.
I'm guessing that's a Northern Irish accent, yeah?
Yes, that's definitely...
Maybe I knew that already.
That's if you didn't work that out now, that's really worrying, Matthew. But I left Northern Ireland 22 years ago, and it doesn't sound like it. Okay. But Dubai's a fantastic place to live, different standard of living. Obviously, we've got a very nice lifestyle. Kids love it. My eldest daughter has already left, go to university, but would like to come back.
Your children actually grew up here then? This is home?
Exactly. So my two elder children, my son's going to go to university this year, and my daughter specifically is desperate to get back to the sunshine.
Right.
So we have a fantastic standard of living, and a lot of people come here and say they want to enjoy the lifestyle for 10 years, then they'll leave, and so they'll buy for the 10 years, and then they'll sell, hopefully at a profit, and then they'll leave and go back to their home country.
Yeah, no, okay. So I mean, obviously, schooling out here, how does that work? Is that all private then, or? It
is. It's if you're non-local, then it is all private. A lot of companies do give school fees as part of the package. Not all do. It does tend to be quite expensive, especially going into secondary. Sometimes we find our clients and send their kids back home to go to boarding school.
Okay.
That they maybe don't stay into secondary or into sixth form. My children did stay all the way through.
And the schooling system is good. I mean, what's the sort of standards? I mean, they're getting best teachers from around the world coming in here, or?
I think teachers also who are qualified in the UK love to come here because again they want the lifestyle for a while. So the schooling, you can get the American system, the British system, the IB system. So you do have a choice. And again, in comparison to 15 years ago, there's a lot more choice. 15 years ago, there was only a few secondary schools. Now you can shop around and really look at the different schools and what sort of schooling system you want, depending on where your child's going to go to university in the end.
Yeah. Okay, and they, I suppose, the other obviously important part of living out here would be healthcare. That's the same as the schooling? Is that all private?
Yes, exactly. It is all private as well. Again, most companies will offer that as part of their package, and you have to have it because otherwise it can work out very costly. Yeah. Just one visit to the doctor for just a checkup can be very expensive. Yeah. So you really do have to have medical cover.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, coming from the the UK, the NHS, a lot of people knock it. I mean, it's got some great sides to it. But one friend of mine said to me that he had an appointment over here in Dubai with a doctor, and he told him whatever the problem was, and that was over in about 3-4 minutes. And the doctor said to him, "Look, you've got half an hour with me. Do you want to talk about anything else?" Which,
really?
When I was hearing that, I'm thinking, wow, in the UK you can't get an appointment for 2 weeks and you're kicked out. So
Exactly. Yeah, obviously, we have a lot of tests done for a lot of things, no matter what you've got.
I don't think it was that. I think it was just him being very friendly, to be honest.
But it does happen. You
because
go
it's
in,
a private system. It sounded pretty good. So, is there anywhere that's offering very good opportunity to purchase over here at the minute? Would there be, let's say again, I've got 2 million dirhams and I'm more the head purchase. I just want to get a good investment, a good return on my money. Let's say, where would we? What areas would you be sort of saying, Matt, I'm going to take you, go and have a look around?
I can't say to you, I would really say one specific area. What I would say is find a property that has a USP.
Okay.
Unique
selling point,
exactly.
Okay.
Something that's special, something that's different. Maybe it's got a bigger garden, because a lot of the new developments don't have large gardens. There's some developments here that all the villas are identical and all the gardens are identical, and you can't put in pools, so you can't change it, so you don't have a USP. So look for a property that has even the potential to have a USP. If you can do some changes on it, or if you can put in an amazing garden, then you'll be onto a winner, because it'll always rent out well and you'll sell it well. So I wouldn't say one specific area. I would say it would be down to the actual property type. Okay.
That makes I suppose good investment sense. Always look for something slightly different than rather.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of 100 in a building when maybe there's a downturn. You can have to struggle to get rid of it as well.
Exactly.
I mean, on that, the longevity of apartments here. I mean, are they? When they're released, they've got standard kitchens. Are people actually, buying new kitchens and refurbishing places out here now? Or
yes, definitely. If you drive through the Arabian Ranches, again as an example, if you drive through the first area that was finished Sahil, which was probably released about 12 years ago, where people started to move in, if you drive through there, you will see near enough 9 out of 10 of the villas that have been sold recently are being gutted.
Okay.
So they're having all new kitchens put in. Again, people want to put their stamp because it's their home. So it's owners that are buying. The villas maybe were rented out for years, and someone's bought it, so they're putting in new kitchens, new bathrooms, and then of course that opened up another branch here, that we started to get companies that were opening up to do renovations, and they do them to a really good standard. Obviously that can work out quite costly, but at the minute we are in a buyer's market, so you can find a great property with that little bit of extra cash free to be able to put in and put your mark on it.
No, for sure. So it's a bit like me looking for someone back home for an investment. It's more I always go, when I see an agent, I say, have you got any with green carpets, brown curtains?
Nice.
Smells a bit funny in there. So it's basically that's kind of the equivalent here. But I guess they don't have green carpets and brown curtains over here.
We don't have that. I don't want to
Cracked
tell you
tiles,
what
maybe,
we do have, but it's similar. We have similar issues, but the buyers will know that. They'll go in knowing that this is the floor plan they want, because it's got big spacious rooms and it's very open plan, and they know that they can transform it by literally putting in a few new bathrooms, new kitchen. It might have a beautiful golf course view, and they're getting it at a great price, and they know that they can transform it.
No, for sure. I suppose anybody who's thinking to move out to the UAE, as an expat, what advice would you give them before they jump on the plane, or when they hear what they should be doing when they get here, from your experience?
First of all,
do's and don'ts, maybe.
Do's and don'ts. Okay, so first of all, come and visit after your interview. Have a look at the schools. That's if you've got children, that's one of the top things. Is go and have a look at the schools and make sure that you're happy with the schooling. At least this is what we did, and I still think it applies. Once you've identified the school that you want to go to, don't necessarily think that you can live in that area, because you may have one child in one school somewhere and another child in another school. So it's very, very difficult to live and work and have your children in school all in the one area. So I would say come back and look and really do investigations, price groceries, price things that you would do every day at home, and just make sure that you are going to be able to afford that better standard of living, because there's no point coming if actually your salary isn't going to allow it. Then have a look around all the areas and identify really where you want to live, what your budget is. Go out with a good agent who really knows the areas, not somebody who's got off the plane 7 weeks ago and is a real estate agent. find a company that are really established and specialise in that area, because they can tell you everything about the properties. So that personally would be my advice.
Yeah, no. I suppose when you get off the plane, you see all these wonderful buildings, and it's the tallest this, but actually, I went to the DP golf tournament on Friday, and the family areas were fantastic. I really have this sense that there really is a big, I don't know, like for children, it's really well allocated out here. Even around the marina that we're in at the moment. There's like little areas for kids. It's quite a big focus on that family life.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head, and I noticed that when I moved here. When we were in the UK and you take your kids out, it's like they were treated sometimes like they shouldn't be in certain restaurants, but here they always accommodate, because the locals here are big into looking after their families and going out with their families. They spend a lot of time together, so it's worked out well for us as well, because then we can benefit from that. So you can go anywhere. There's lots of play areas and parks and pools, and
it's definitely a different mindset, because we was in an Iranian restaurant yesterday with a friend of my little boy who's he's just running now, kind of walking, running, and right after we finished dinner, they say, oh yeah, put him on the floor, and I'm like, back home I'll be like, no, everyone's going to be like, can you keep your child quiet, kind of thing, and he was just running up and down, and everybody was kind of joining in, enjoying it, which conservative me was like, whoa,
exactly.
It's actually quite refreshing in many ways. So that's great. So Angela, you're working for house hunters. How can anybody get in contact with you if they're thinking of buying, or I suppose renting as well? You must do rentals at
we do, Of course, we have a dedicated rental team, and we have a dedicated sales team. So of course you can look us up. We are on the internet. We have a selection of properties on there, and our website is www.househuntersdubai.com.
And all those details will be on the website, so you'll be able to get in contact with Angela. But you primarily concentrate on sales, do you, rather than?
But we have a strong rental team and a large number of girls in rentals. But my department is sales.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you all the best, Angela, and maybe you can come and show me a few flats now and some villas, and
let's go.
I'll make sure my credit card's firmly left in my wallet, I think.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Matthew.
You're listening to The Property Show with Matt Turner of Astute Property Search. If you have any property-related questions that you would like to ask Matt, you can email him at matt, with 2 T's, at astutepropertysearch.co.uk.
Okay, so today I've been graced by the presence of Marjan Tehrani. She owns Property Boutique, an estate agency here in Dubai. We are currently sitting it's an amazing view we have here. What floor are we on?
61st.
61st. Okay, my ears actually popped as we were coming up in the lift in one of the address hotels, which you can actually buy and rent out the units. We've got a view of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest tower in the world, and in the distance we can see the Burj Dubai, which was designed on like a sail. So hi Marjan, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. And how long have you worked in real estate in Dubai?
Since 2005.
Okay, so
12 years approximately.
So you've seen the ups and the downs, I guess.
I've seen everything, yes.
Seen everything, okay. Some things you're probably not allowed to tell us, no?
Probably, yes.
So, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of investment clients. Tell us a little bit about the address hotels, because they're quite, someone else actually mentioned to me, they obviously make good investments. What is it about the hotel that clients like?
I think it's a good package, because it's obviously they're 5-star hotels. They are done by AMR, which is probably the best developer in Dubai, and generally they're easy investments. People that look at the address hotels are not necessarily on a budget. They're not very interested in the ROIs, but the appreciation is more important. And address hotels generally don't have much competition. when you put a unit in the Address Hotels app for sale, it doesn't take too much time for it to sell. There's always interest. And in down markets, they don't take hits either. Not as much as other projects. They also, of course, go down in price, but not as much. And another thing, majority of the owners have the holding power, so they never really forced to sell. You do not come across a lot of desperate sellers in these hotels.
Yeah.
And the fact that MR or the Address team takes care of everything, whether it's rentals, servicing the units, everything is really taken care of, and it just makes it easy for investors that don't live in Dubai. They just buy it, give it to the hotel, they take care of everything. You just, if you want to use it, you notify them, you send an email, you come in, and everything is taken care of.
So how often can you, if you buy a unit, how often can you actually use it during that year?
You have two concepts. You either give it to the hotel and they manage it completely. That's called hotel pool. Then you get 14 days a year. Or you give it to the hotel to rent per month or for a year, and then you can inform them, I want to come then and then and use it, so they keep it empty for you, and they only rent it during the time that you are not going to use it yourself.
Yeah.
So you have these two options. The hotel pool is a little bit more strict, because also during Christmas you can't just show up and use it yourself.
Sure.
Those are days where they're not going to give, even though you're the owner, they're not going to give it to you to use.
The
Those are
occupancy
like,
rates
yeah, exactly.
will be high.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
suppose
the
that's it
highest.
really. I mean, this is a 5-star hotel itself.
They are, yes.
The quality of the finish here is fantastic. Obviously, I was in Dubai in 2005 and saw a lot of units. They were the quality was, let's say, quite standard. This one's it's like a top end finish, isn't it?
I think the Address Hotel, starting with the Address downtown, which probably was the first one and it's the flagship, is the most expensive project in Dubai.
Yeah.
In terms of price per square foot, if you look at it, it says 5,000 to 6,000 dirhams per square foot. Some units, not all of them. It's an average of 3,500 to 4,000 dirhams per square foot, but really prime units, they sell that high, and that's the highest.
Okay, I mean, so talking about an investment, let's say somebody wanted to buy a 1-bedroom. What's the ticket level for that in dirhams or dollars?
It depends on the Address Hotels, but in the one that we are in right now, the Address the Boulevard, which is the newest one, you'll be looking at anything between 2.5 to 3.2 million, depending on the size and the views.
Okay, so
that's in dirhams.
Yeah, okay, so we're looking, that's sort of $700,000 to $800,000 US dollars.
Yes,
I would say. And so if you're going to rent that out, give it back to the hotel on a rental pool. I mean, what kind of return are we, someone going to be looking at?
A net return would probably be about 5 to 6%.
Okay.
You rent it annually for around 240,000 to 250,000. That's gross.
Yeah.
And then you have the service charges to pay, and then there is a fee that the address takes, and also there is a tax because these are serviced apartments. That's probably one of the only projects where you do pay a tax on. Mm-hmm. It's 10%. That you pay to the municipality in Dubai. So, but yeah, net returns are 5 to 6%.
Yeah, and I suppose this is quite unique for Dubai. Is it? It's one of the only hotel projects that you can buy in.
The Address Hotels, yes. There are a few others, but branded, well-known, and good investments. Address Hotels, yes.
No, for sure. And just to put it out there, so this was the infamous New Year's Eve party a few years back where one of the buildings burnt down. That is an Address Hotel.
That was, that was the flagship, the Address downtown.
Okay. Are people put off in buying that now?
Not at all. No.
And is it back up? People have got their units back?
Not yet. It will reopen in 2018. In 2016, right after the fire, was the time where many buyers were looking to buy because they thought they would get a good deal, which didn't happen. Majority of the sellers knew they're going to get their units brand new in 2 to 3 years.
Refurbished, in
yes,
essence.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of people thought prices will drop. That didn't happen. And in about, I think in 2017 is when people realized this is their chance if they want to get into the building, because upon completion or after completion, it's going to be much higher than it is today. So in 2017, many transactions happened in the address downtown by buyers that have always wanted to buy there or that even own in the building, and they just added more units to their portfolio.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, and talking about the buyers, I mean, what is there any sort of certain demographic? Is it quite a global market here, or I mean, do you see sort of trends? I mean, like from central London, you get, depending on how the currency is, you might get sort of Far Eastern or Russian buyers coming in. I mean, how sort of cosmopolitan is it here?
I think it's a good mix of all nationalities.
Yeah.
These hotels are always loved by people from GCC,
Okay, so
the Gulf countries, yes. Just because they like the area, they like the convenience, the fact that it's connected to Dubai Mall, they've got, the restaurants around, they have everything around, they don't need to have the beach very close. So they are more the end users, but at the same time, they invest too. I think it's a good mix. Recently, we've seen a lot of Chinese investing in these buildings, or generally in Dubai, but this is one of their first choices. But overall, all nationalities.
I can really see why. No, seriously, the quality in here is amazing. And this one's obviously fully furnished. Does this come fully furnished?
They all come fully furnished. The one that we're in right now is called the Sky Collection unit, which is part of the Penthouse collection.
Yeah.
So the finishing is a little better or upgraded, but you've seen the other unit. It has the same finishing. I think it's the furniture concept is a little different. But
so the one we're sitting in, how many pennies is this one going to cost me?
This is going to cost you 15 to 16 million dirhams.
Okay, so we're looking at 4.5 million US, I suppose.
Approximately, yes.
Okay.
They are very unique. There are only 8 units in the building. So getting someone to actually sell it is not easy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, looking at it, once you've, it's kind of like a trophy purchase. I suppose this isn't really one to put it back in the rental pool so much. It's probably more you're going to be your home, I suppose,
yes.
or your Dubai base coming through. So you've lived in the UAE for a few years. You're from Germany, I believe.
Yes, well, originally Iranian, but I was raised in Germany.
Anything you miss from Europe? I mean, is this home now?
I definitely say Dubai is home. I do miss Germany during Christmas time, because that's a different
It's not known for the Christmas markets.
You don't have that here, and you don't have the weather here. You don't have the cold weather or the snow. So that's probably the only thing I'd miss.
You've got the ski dome, obviously. It doesn't snow, actually. The snow's already there.
Exactly,
somehow it's as magical as
it's not the same
Christmas.
thing. So
okay, so I mean, what is it about the UAE? What do you like as an expat here? If anyone was listening, sort of thinking maybe moving out here.
You wake up and you always have the sun.
Yeah.
That gets you going. I never feel like I'm working, actually.
Okay.
It's like holiday for me. Maybe it's also because of the job that I do, because there's a lot of flexibility. But I never feel like I'm working. It's over. You have the beach. Anytime you feel like it, you can just go to the beach. So it's very much like a holiday in a place where I live. So that's why,
No, okay. No,
I enjoyed it. And of course, tax-free thing is not there.
The tax-free thing helps. Although
I do not pay any taxes. Yes, they are implementing it next year, but still, if I compare it to Germany, it's very limited. It's just 5% that they're adding on, so it's still manageable.
But I suppose it's a pay-as-you-go kind of lifestyle. You've got to have your own health insurance, and you have children. Obviously, you've got to pay for the schools and what have you.
Yes.
No, for sure. So, well, thanks very much for letting us come and see this beautiful apartment today. If anybody was thinking of buying in Dubai, how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can go to propertyboutique.ae and then look up our team, and then they'll see Marjan authority. My phone number should be there, else my email ID is there too.
For sure. Well, it's been ringing a lot today, so probably best not to put it out there. Otherwise, you'll be telling all these listeners calling you up. So that's fantastic. Marjan actually, she speaks Farsi, German, and English. So, and I suppose your team speak a whole host of languages.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Marjan, and we'll.
My pleasure.
You can let me stay here for a week. That'd be great.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, so I thought, as we've spoken to a couple of real estate experts in Dubai, I thought I'd try and speak to someone who's actually doesn't work in real estate, but is renting a property in Dubai. So maybe get the the first-hand information and not from estate agents. So hi, Louise, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
Very good. So you've been in Dubai, I think you said 11 years, is that
11
right?
years, yeah.
Wow, okay. So, as a tenant, what are the pros and cons, if you like, of being a tenant? I hear, because obviously rent very expensive over here if you actually change it back into pounds.
They've varied over the years. When I first moved here, they were quite high. And one of the things with Dubai is that you have to pay your rent in advance for a year.
For a whole year?
For a whole year.
Okay, wow.
And depending on the landlord that you get, you either have the option of paying 1 check, 2 checks, sometimes 3 or 4 checks, but depending on the demand of the property, the landlords can demand less checks because they know it's a landlord's market, or when it's a tenant's market, then you have more of an opportunity to negotiate. I've generally paid 2 checks. When I was renting, I rented a 2-bed in Al Basha, sharing with a friend, and then the rents were quite high, so it was easier to share with a friend, and you half the rent. We paid in 2 checks, so sharing that wasn't too bad. As I had just moved here, although it wasn't too bad in terms of the amount, you still don't have that surplus cash.
It must be quite difficult, actually. So you've got it's quite a commitment, isn't it? If you're actually committing to the whole year. I mean, because I think if you write a check in Dubai, you can't actually, you can't ask for it back. Basically, it's like as good as cash. Yeah?
It is, because bouncing checks in Dubai is actually a criminal offence. So when you write a check, you are writing to commit to making the payment.
So you've got to hope your job is safe for that whole year, I suppose, in many ways.
Do you have to hope so? Some cases you may not be, but
yours is still going. So you've been here 11 years. You haven't lost your job just yet.
I have, but I've survived through it.
Okay.
I think the market has had its ups and downs, but I've been fortunate enough when I have been made redundant to been able to find another job. So in terms of paying rent, I've been okay. And when I first moved here, the company I worked for used to help employees with a loan to pay your rent. So you get an advance for your rent, and then they deduct it off.
And I suppose that's to encourage staff to come over in the first place. Yeah?
It does, and it also helps them to settle in and gives them that commitment to take up the apartments for a year. That way you have a bit more stability with where you're staying.
Yeah.
So that was helpful, and then from there on you're able to then start saving up for the next year's rent, and being able to put up the cash up front once you've been able to save up.
I suppose it's I mean, I said this to someone previously. You're not paying income tax, but rent is technically it's quite a tax. I mean, because you're renting a 2-bed. I think you said to me off air. And I mean, how much is that a year in dirhams?
It's 115,000 dirhams a year.
So
which is about
I mean, in pounds, that'll be, let's get some quick maths going. So divided by it's what, £25,000, £22,000.
23,000 pounds a year, which is quite expensive in comparison to London.
Yeah, that's sort of pushing towards the centre of London prices, isn't it?
And that is actually a mid-range 2-bed property in a expat community, but it's actually not as affluent as other areas, which charge probably 130 to 140 for a 2-bedroom. So I moved to that particular area because the rents were a bit lower, because it was a up and coming area. So whilst it was not fully developed, it meant that the rents were a bit more reasonable than the fully developed residential areas.
It sounds, I mean, obviously from an investor's point of view, if you're getting your money up front for the whole year as a landlord, that sounds very good. Obviously, I mean, is there any upsides from the tenant at all? I mean, are they being well looked after? Are you left alone? I mean,
Well, I think here when you rent a property, one of the good things is that you get, the property comes with, for me, luckily, where I live, is the air conditioning is part of the building, so it's a central AC system, so that's one less cost. You also have the maintenance, and most buildings provide maintenance if they're owned by one landlord. So my building is owned by one landlord, so they provide maintenance for the apartment, so if anything goes wrong, there's always somebody to fix things in the apartment. On the downside, most apartments in Dubai are unfurnished, so you end up having to buy your furniture. So that's always a cost that you have to take into consideration when you're moving here, or taking up an apartment. Although in recent years, I think some landlords have realised that there's a gap in the market for furnished properties. So there's quite a few furnished properties in the market now. But having been here for 11 years, you buy your own furniture, and so when you move, you just move with your own furniture.
Move with the furniture, yeah. And is moving expensive, or like the actual physical part of moving? Or
I think it is and it isn't. It's not expensive because the moving companies here pretty much do everything for you. So sort of looking back to when I moved in the UK, I'd rent a van and move myself, or get some friends to come and help me. Whereas here, there's so many moving companies, and there's so much competition for the moving companies that you can get a moving company that you pay on average about 2,000 to 3,000 dirhams to move a 2-bedroom apartment. And I'm talking furniture, living room, bedrooms, and sometimes you may have appliances. And for that, you don't have to lift a finger apart from maybe just packing your personal effects.
No, okay.
So it's an expense, but in the grand scheme of things, to what you personally have to do, it's something that you opt to do because it saves you the hassle of packing yourself.
Sure.
And they come and pack everything from your glasses to your sofas to taking clothes out of the wardrobe and putting them in boxes and moving them to the next apartment and putting them up. So curtains, pictures, everything goes up from one apartment to the other. So
okay, and I mean, yeah, I think the tenant pays the commission here as well to the agent when you find a new property. They're the
Oh yes, that is one of the downsides of renting in Dubai, is that you have the added cost, not just of moving costs, but you have to pay commission to the estate agents when they find your property.
Yeah.
And that's 5%. It's a standard set fee, and you don't really have much say to that because it's something that's set, I believe, by the government, or it's part of.
But I mean, the tenancies are a little bit regulated now. I mean, like landlords, can they put prices up every year? Or I mean, it's
the system has got better because I think the government realised that the market was the landlords were taking advantage of the market by putting up rents when there wasn't enough properties in the market, and that happened a few years ago. So what the government's done is they now have a rental index, which they have pricing.
They produce it, and then they
produce it. Yeah. They look at the average prices for the areas depending on the amenities and the value of the properties in that area. And so there's a rental index, which means the landlords can only put up the rent based on the rental index, and it's capped to a certain percentage depending on what the rental amount is.
No, okay. So, I mean, obviously you've been here 11 years. What is it? I mean, I guess it's technically home now for you, is it? Or, I mean, you're originally from London. I mean, you can see yourself going back there anytime soon?
I do.
What do you like about Dubai? I mean, what's holding you here?
I think one of the great things about Dubai is the lifestyle, the standard of living, obviously the sun, and not to forget the most important, which is tax-free living and earning a salary tax-free. So not having to pay income tax on your salary and not having to pay taxes just living here, although saying that we do have VAT coming in. Yeah. But, as an expat living here, you earn better than you do in the UK because there's no tax. And I feel that the salaries here are more than you get paid back in the UK.
Yeah, and I suppose obviously it's a large expat community. I mean, it's quite easy to make friends over here.
It is, because everyone in Dubai is an expat, so to speak, apart from the locals who are born and bred here. But majority of the population in Dubai is an expat community. A lot of people move here either as singletons or with family. But because you're here as expats, everybody wants to be able to make friends, and so it's a very friendly city, I would say. People are very open to meeting other people.
Is it a little bit like being on holiday?
To a certain extent, but I think once you've lived here as long as I have, I think that holiday aspect kind of wears off. But it's a nice city to live in because you've got the beach on your doorstep. Your buildings come with swimming pools, so you have somewhere to sort of unwind on your weekends. So it's a bit of a holiday when you think about it in the context of the facilities that you do get here. But at the same time, it's a home. You make it home, and you make the most of it living here. Yeah,
and working out here. I mean, from working in London to here, is there any major difference, or is it just like one city to another? I mean,
I think it's one city to another. I may say that I feel that sometimes we work harder here. But then again, maybe it's just the demands, and because it's such a growing market, and it's constantly evolving. So companies moving here are constantly growing and evolving. So I think there's more expectations of your job when you're working out here. But
I mean, it's quite an ambitious place, isn't it? Dubai. It's always, like the buildings, like you said, they're always popping up. They're growing. I suppose in business, people coming out here, it seems quite an entrepreneurial place.
It is, and you tend to find that there's a lot of businesses that are started and homegrown in Dubai, which in comparison to other places is not as much. There's a lot of definitely entrepreneurs in Dubai, and opportunities are vast because it's such a new city, and there's so many opportunities for entrepreneurs to start businesses in Dubai.
Yeah, so finally, anything you miss from back home? I mean, you pop back there often, do you? It's only 7-hour flight, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I go back definitely every summer. I like going back in the summer because you get the nice long summer days in London, be it you don't always get the weather, but it's always nice to see family. And Christmas, because it's just nicer to be at home for Christmas.
Okay, I mean, I did actually buy the Time Out Dubai this week, and it showed all about the Christmas brunches, and they did look very, very good. So obviously they are accommodating for Christmas over here as well. Anyway, that's great. Thanks for telling us about the rental market and a little bit on expat life in Dubai. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you.
So thank you again for tuning in to the Property Show on UK Health Radio. Hopefully I've encouraged you to book some winter sun and zoom off to Dubai to see what I've been talking about in first hand. I'm going to keep you guessing about the show for next week. I'm either going to be in Notting Hill. You've probably all seen the film with Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, but it also is a lovely area of West London. Or I may well be in Richmond, also another area of West London, but as far as I know, I don't think there's been a film made about that. So that's Matt Turner on the UK Health Radio, and that's The Property Show. See you next week.